Hey everybody, this is Jason, Colorado Mountain Man Survival. I'm out at my camp today at my primitive trapping course, and I'm going to show you how to make an Ojibwa bird trap. You're going to need a post to set this up on, a perch for the bird to sit on, some cordage, rope, twine, paracord, whatever, and a counterweight. Alright, the first thing I'm going to need to do is bore a hole through the top of this post so that the perch that the bird is going to sit on and the actual trigger stick will fit in here. I could use a multi-tool, make this hole pretty easily. It'd be a little difficult to get through this thick tree with a knife and get a nice straight hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this trigger stick as a spindle, and I'm going to use a bow drill and try and bore through this. So first thing I'm going to do is take my knife and come down about a foot or so, and I'm going to start just a little notch right in here for that spindle to seat in. Very similar to a bow drill friction fire, but instead of trying to make an ember, I'm going to use this spindle to drill through this wood. Alright, so now I got my spindle, I got it on a bow drill. I'm going to seat it in that notch. I'm going to take my bearing block and we're going to drill through this guy. Alright, well that failed miserably. Some people would edit that out, but we learn from our mistakes. So what I went and did is got a smaller, shorter spindle that's a little bit stronger, and I'm going to try this again. And also put pants on, because kneeling down in the dirt in shorts sucks. Well, it took me multiple tries and multiple spindles, but I was finally able to bore a hole through there. See, it made a pretty clean hole with that spindle. The perch that I'm going to put in here, which is my trigger stick, fits in there and it stays in there. The hole might be a little bit too big for this perch. We'll give it a shot. But what's important is the cordage you use needs to slide through that hole without snagging up. I've got paracord. You might use bank line or fishing line or the insides of this paracord or whatever you got, but this needs to slide through there freely and not get snagged up. What you do is that sits in there, the paracord sits through that hole and it pulls through with a counterweight on this back side. Your trigger stick sits on there and jams it up. It keeps it from sliding. This is your counterweight. It pulls down here. This side's going to have your noose, your loop. When the bird sits on this trigger stick, just barely balance it in there. This falls through and that counterweight is going to pull this through. It's going to take me a little bit of tweaking with this to get the right size, to make sure I've got the right fit, but eventually I'll get the right fit and this is going to jam up in there. So I'm going to play with this for a little bit. When I find a trigger stick that works, I'll get back with you. Alright, I got my trigger stick worked out, but before I do that, before I show that to you, I'm going to continue working on this. What I need to do is put a point on this end, that's the top end. The reason I put a point up here is to keep the birds from landing on top of that. I don't want them landing on here. I want them landing on that trigger stick. And then I'm going to point the other side so I can drive it into the ground. So really simple. You all know how to make a spear. So I'm going to just chop this down and get it to a nice point on both sides. So there's my top point. That keeps the bird from landing on that. And there's my bottom. It makes it easier to drive into the ground. All right, so I got it driven into the ground. Got my loop, my snare loop tied in here. I used a trapper's knot. I'm going to cinch this up a little bit more. I like the length of this. And I'll show you how to do a trapper's knot. If I can get this guy untied. Basically, all I want to do is take my rope, make a bite in the rope, and I'm going to make a loop that's about 2 fingers in size. So 2 fingers, take this and just tie it. So now I can just fit 2 fingers in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to fold it over so it makes a figure 8. My big fat finger is getting in the way here, so there's kind of a figure 8. And then I'm just going to double it back over on itself. So the 2 loops in the 8 make 1 loop. And then I'm going to take the other side of my long side of my rope. I'm going to pass it through those 2 loops. Probably can't see what I'm doing here, but I think I got a video out here on how to do this. You just have to go find it. When you're catching a bird, you probably don't need as big a rope as this paracord, unless you're catching a very large bird. If you're catching smaller birds, then you probably want smaller rope. But there's that rope passed through there. As you can see, there's kind of a figure 8, and that rope slides through there. What happens is when this loop cinches down on whatever it is you're catching, the more they struggle, the more it locks up. It doesn't let free. It's kind of a locking, like a locking mechanism on a metal snare trap. Anyways, there's my trapper's loop. Oh, that was graceful. Anyways, there's my trapper's loop. The long end of this rope feeds through the hole on this trap here. And then my toggle, or my trigger stick, pull this out a little bit, fits in that hole. And you just barely want it to snug up in there. So when the animal, the bird lands on it, and birds are light, so you have to have it so it doesn't take a lot of pressure and it's going to fall right out. If you get it jammed into there too far, a small bird is not going to trigger this. So you got to think of the weight of your animal, and your trigger has to be set accordingly. So now this is going to just sit on the top of there, and the bird's going to fly down and land on this. Trap's almost complete, but not quite. On this side, the long end, I've got to put my counterweight. It needs to be tied right up here. You can use a rock, you can use a heavy branch, you can use whatever you can find, but it's got to sit right in here and it just dangles down. Okay, so I've got my counterweight tied in here. It's just dangling on there. I didn't get too crazy with the weight. You can go as heavy or as light as you need to according to the weight of the animal. So the bird flies in, hits this, and now I got him. Let's set this back up and I'll show you close up what it looks like. Okay, so here's your trigger mechanism. This perch right here that you want the bird to land on. So the paracord loop, this is your snare trap. There's the figure 8. This camera to focus here. There's that trapper's knot. And you see the paracord passes through the stick. There's a hole there. Comes out this back side and goes down and ties in to my counterweight. Use whatever knot you prefer there. That's just a quick clove hitch for expediency. But there is the Ojibwa Bird Trap in all its glory. Trigger it here. Bird comes in, pushes down on that. He got away. We'll try it one more time. So one more time, bird comes in and lands. And you got him. So the next thing is to set this trap up in the proper location. Chances are I'm not going to catch anything out in the woods, middle of the woods here. Something like this would probably be better out in a field where the birds typically pass through quite a bit, or you're just going to monitor your environment and figure out where the birds are at. And that's where you set this guy up at. But that's your Ojibwa bird trap. Hopefully you learned something. I'll see you again next time.